Hello, thank you for joining me. I figured I'll get started right now, let the stream build up for a little bit while I wait for Emmanuel to join me. It's just going to be me and Emmanuel this week. So hopefully you guys still enjoy the content just as much. Um, a couple of the topics that we're going to get into. Um, I wanted to talk about the coronavirus, the numbers, how they've been affecting certain states, some of those things. Um, the sad and untimely passing of Michael Brooks. As I said in the description, or if you haven't read the description, I said, granted, this is a show to talk about Black issues and a platform for young Black leaders to uh, be able to have a platform to be able to speak about certain topics and issues that they don't feel that their voice has been represented. Um, and the reason why I want to talk about Michael Brooks is because he did have a lot of influence, and he was very passionate about helping out with the Black community. He had a very, very close relationship with the Black community, and he spent numerous hours, trying to fight on behalf of many of those causes. So I did want to talk about Michael Brooks. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Kind of a fun little silly topic I want to talk about is some of the interesting things I've been seeing on Twitter, um, between the actual left, or what I call the left, and what some people think is the left. Um, I also wanted to talk about how we can start to define ourselves rather than be defined. Um, I'm sure once Emmanuel hops in, he'll be able to give you a couple of topics that he wants to talk about. Um, if you guys join in the chat as you guys start to fill in, then then give me some suggestions that you would like to talk about also, and we can go from there. Okay, hold on one second. Sorry, getting used to live, so working out all the different technical difficulties, if you will. Um, oh yeah, something else that I wanted to talk about. Oh, there's Manuel right there. I'll bring him on in.
Can you hear me,
Hello.
Marcus?
Yes, sir. I hear you perfectly fine. You hear me okay?
Okay.
All
Yeah, can
right.
I do I come in?
Oh wow, that's much better. Much better. Um, what was it that I was about to do? Um, I'll fill you in on what I was just talking about a second ago. But
Okay.
I have us going live on YouTube and on Periscope right now.
Okay.
So I'm giving us a little moment to see if we get, maybe one or two, you know, voices out there who want to join the conversation or interested in watching us live. And then looking for one other thing, I'll try to put it out on Twitter to see if we have any other people who might be interested in following the stream who might not be getting the notification. So just bear with me, getting used to this
Got you.
this
You're good.
live stream thing. Any topics that you wanted to interesting that you noticed this week that you wanted to discuss?
The stuff that happened in Portland and uh, I guess sports returning to sports start playing again and the Black Lives Matter kneeling. I think that's it.
Okay, hold on one second. Got one last. I had to put it out. How's your week been, by the way?
Not well, but the month's almost over, and hopefully next month will be better than this month. So
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Sorry, just one more moment.
you're good, man. Take your time.
Yeah, I figure I put out the notifications on various different platforms. Hopefully the word gets out there and those interested um, join us. And then maybe along the way that we will get new panelists who want to join us also and start to add in their voices because I don't want people to think that this is some kind of platform that I want to do to try to push a specific message that I have or that Emmanuel has or that Root has or that Sade has, that we are cooking up something behind the scenes. We are all independent. We all have our own independent voices. None of us are influencing each other's views. We all came to the table with these certain viewpoints, and we just so happen to coincide and agree. Um, there's no conspiracy behind any of that. And I ask for like-minded folks to come on out and do the same. The reason why I title it Black Young Leaders Forum, I put the black first because I want people to focus on the fact that yes, we are looking for young black voices and talking specifically about uh, black issues dealing with politics, specifically on the left spectrum, the real left spectrum.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we encourage those to join us in this conversation. Those who might be a little bit still shy to get in front of the camera, you can still retweet, share, repost, whatever you like to do, or you can just because I figured the first story that I wanted to talk about. I figure we'll talk about the coronavirus stuff first. A couple of
Of
things.
course.
Um, all right, let's get going. All
Okay.
right, this is what I've been thinking with Marcus Cage. This is my young. Well, sorry, I already got the title mixed up. Black Young Leaders Forum. This would be the fourth episode. I am here joined with my good friend Emmanuel, who goes the by the handle at the Blue Maverick on Twitter. Welcome, Emmanuel. Like I said, if you would.
Hi. Thank you. I'm just glad to be here, and thank you, Marcus, for allowing me to speak. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Oh man, I'm glad to have you on. My goal is to try to encourage more people, get more voices out there. I feel that a lot of times the corporate media structure, and a lot of the legacy media and newspapers try to um, give an image, or they try to take the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, and or other elite, black celebrities, and try to cast that's the viewpoint of all of Black America, and that's no truer than all of white America agrees on everything, and I just wanted to try to create a platform where those people who feel like their voices are not being represented in the media are able to, speak about certain issues. And this platform on I wanted to do on Sunday different than my normal little videos about specific topics. This one would be a little bit more open dialogue. Let the conversation flow so we can have more time to actually really talk about the issues in a more nuanced, mature way instead of, trying to make everything down to one person is good, one person is evil all the time, which we tend to do pretty much with everything. I mean, you look at it through sports, do you look at it through entertainment? There's always a good and a bad. And when you really suss things out throughout life, a lot of us are always fighting a battle of good and bad within ourselves. So it's something interesting which I feel like is always played with, and it's something which is always used against us. Um, that said, let's get on to our first topic. First topic I want to talk about was the coronavirus spikes. Um, I tweeted out probably about, let's see, a month ago, that California and Florida would be past New York, you know, I think I said like 3 weeks. And
Mhm.
it turned out to be maybe a couple of days shy of the exact, time when they both passed. And finally, I've started to notice that a lot of these governors who have decided to reopen in a lot of these Republican states, finally their poll numbers are actually starting to hit them and starting to show some kind of give. Because before I was under the assumption that they're not getting any pushback in the polls. A lot of their people there are more with the Republican governor, even though places like Florida are more of a purple state, and even though Texas is, you know, controlled in the hands of the Republicans, there's still quite a bit of people who lean to the left out there and have their own different perspectives on things. So I just find that it's interesting that you're starting to see a turn of the tide. I mean, I think it's even emblematic in Donald Trump and some of his changing behavior. What do you think?
Well, I'm from Georgia, so I was one of the first states that like legitimately said open up, right? So um, I wasn't a particularly big fan of opening. I remember like the good couple of weeks where they were like, it's all a hoax. The numbers aren't climbing. It's all made up. They're just you know uh, they're making it more of an issue than it's supposed to be. And now the numbers dramatically climbed, and now it went from like the supermarket where I used to go to. It went from no mask to mask requested to mask required in like 2 weeks. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks. So I'm like, even little changes like that, I mean, like, they're a big deal. And um, I particularly worry that my state will become, a contentious state, like, because of course the um, Republican governor and the Democratic mayor,
Hmm.
fighting it out in public for FaceTime and tweets and percentage points and just to make themselves look good. Meanwhile, people are dropping, people are worried about getting unemployment. People are worried about food stamps. People are worried about whether they're going to be evicted from their homes. I mean, none of the real issues are being taken care of in regards to this virus. I mean, I don't see anybody really talking about like systemic change that we so desperately need in the wake of this virus that shows how incrementally flawed America was to handle this. So, I'm sad that the numbers rose. I'm sad that they're honestly trying to reopen schools with kids, right? And I'm like, if you've ever been, because I've taught and because I've done substitute teaching in schools, you can get sick very very quickly just with like the common cold, and and the coronavirus is supposedly worse than that, and or on level with that, and I'm just like, it wouldn't take much for a little kid to get it and give it to their teacher, or to get it and take it home to their family. It wouldn't take much. Even in the supermarket, they're even saying, little kids don't have to wear masks. You know why? Because you put a little mask around it. If you put a mask around a little kid, what's the kid gonna do? Kid's gonna automatically take it off. They don't have the patience to maintain stuff like washing their hands and social distancing and stuff like that. So it's just a nightmare in the making. So
But I think almost what you said about like the kid and the mask is almost like a perfect metaphor for um it's almost like a perfect metaphor for a lot of people in the society in a sense, because you have so many people who childishly just refuse to wear the mask. And they come
right,
up with every single reason in the book why the mask is a problem. I look at it like this. Um, it's the same way I've treated people who I had disagreements in beliefs. For instance, I don't agree with things of the Mormon church, and I never have as a kid growing up. But the one thing I wasn't going to do is I wasn't going to intentionally be offensive to Mormons just because I had a disagreement with their beliefs. I look at the mask as the same thing. The mask is not harming you to put that on for half a second. If you're complaining about, well, the mask, putting that on, I could be breathing in carbon dioxide, which can hurt my lungs. Well, why don't you have that same concern with what we put in the food? Why don't you have that same concern, with so many other things throughout society? I mean, that's the question that I have for those people. I mean, that like you said, the child always pulls the mask off, and that's how I look at a lot of people dealing with this whole coronavirus situation.
right. You have like adults who can't even stand having a mask on for like 2 hours, 3 hours, for like even an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. But you're going to ask a whole bunch of little kids who have less emotional regulation and less self control to sit there and do that through like a school setting. That's not gonna work. I feel like it's
Well,
not gonna work.
well, and then think about that. You said for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Look at all the videos of the people who are just flipping out on people, about even being asked to wear the mask, or they wear the mask and then
Right.
walk in the store, take it off, and then start yelling at the employees. I
Hmm.
look at it like this. Say you have an issue with wearing the mask. That is separate from harassing those employees who are following protocol. If they don't follow that protocol, they can risk their livelihood. Now, you feel it's that much more important for you to decide to wear a piece of cloth over your face than to worry about somebody's job. I mean, to me, the level of just selfishness, and a lot of these people, I don't understand it.
I you know the I looked into stuff about the flu pandemic from 1918, and I was intricately always fascinated with that. And there was a discussion about it I think that I saw, recently about how nobody ever talks about it later, or nobody ever talks about, like, the parade that they did, like, right when the numbers were starting to go down, and then they dramatically started to climb back up. I feel, given that level of context, given that level of historical perspective, I mean, I'm just, for me, as an American, I'm disappointed that almost like 100 years passed and we still couldn't get that right, about the concept of the mass. I mean, that disappointed me. That
Well,
disappointed me greatly. I mean,
well,
but
I feel like that's almost like one of those things, like my alter ego side, the political matrix, that show that it would be a better answer to this, because if you look back to what was going on in that time, when you talk about the early pandemic, in 1917, 1918 time frame, at that same time frame, it was still early in the country's origins, and a lot of people who had personal wealth had a lot of control within the country, and were able to influence things massively. And because those people believed so much in the war effort, they pushed they
yeah,
pushed a lot of warnings aside so that they could keep the war effort going, because they wanted to win. They knew how it was spreading, they knew how it was affecting people. Fast forward to today, how I relate that and see it the same way is, out here where I live in California, you can literally drive out to the docks and see where the massive shipments of oil come in. Um, those shipments that come in from the Middle East and stuff like that. When they had everything locked down, you had just barrels and barrels and barrels sitting out there. You know, that's when you started to notice the real panic and push for the economy to be reopened.
to reopen.
And then what I started to notice from there is, you started to notice it trickle down into smaller business people deciding, well, I need to get my business open. I need to get my business open. I'm struggling. And you combine that with the fact that the government has done such a piss poor response in trying to help with with actually helping these mid to small level businesses, that
Hmm.
it's put a lot of people into that. Well, I guess I'll just have to take my chances with this coronavirus thing. And then you have the people who they're deemed as essential employees, and they have to work it anyway. So, I mean, where do you go from there?
Right. I think the worst argument I saw, I guess, recently is, essential workers complaining about, the extra $600 in unemployment. And I'm like, the bigger question would be, like, as an essential worker, why aren't any of these other companies giving y'all like a living wage, or giving y'all like full health insurance and stuff like that, to make sure that you guys, if you're essential, you guys are important, and you guys are talking about, like, this this one person who gets like 600, this one person who gets like $600 a week. I think I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter on they said they worked at Amazon, and they were upset that someone was sitting at home and getting $600 a week. And I'm like, you're not mad at, like, Bezos getting like 18 billion in one day off of your work? I'm like, where's the complaint there? Why aren't you upset about that? Why aren't you upset about your boss literally making more than you would ever make in like 9 lifetimes, and you're complaining about, like, this other person who needs that money to, like, feed their kids, or pay their rent, or basic other essential stuff that they need? I'm like, I said, the poor hate the poor and the rich hate the poor. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, poor hate poor,
you know,
rich hate
it's it's
poor.
um it's good that you brought up Twitter, because I wanted to talk about Twitter a little bit. Um,
Sure.
A couple of things that have been interesting as far as Twitter that have been going on with me lately.
Mm-hmm.
One, I've been having a lot of people who are either, I guess I would consider them new to being a Bernie Sanders supporter, because it seems like after the election was over, all of a sudden their timeline was full of a lot of Bernie Sanders and a lot of the more popular lefties, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of their retweets.
Mm-hmm.
And I started noticing that. And then I would go down and go down and go down to the threads. And then you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing resistor this, resistor that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to see like it's almost like they're trying to have like a it's weird to me because I don't want to go against anybody wanting to, I guess, bridge the gap between the left and the right. I mean, not the left and the right,
Gotcha.
but the left
The left and
and
the
the right.
Democrat.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I genuinely want to be able to convince some of those people more to our position and our plight. But it almost just seems a little odd just how many people have been all coming, and then it all relates back to Biden, relates back to are you going to vote for Biden, Black
Mm-hmm.
PP. It always
Okay.
relates back to these three things. And one of the people who I was just going back and forth with, they tried to bring up, what, are you going to vote for Green Party? What, do they support reparations? And I'm like, actually, they do. Actually, the Green Party supported reparations since 2016. So I'm like, it's just kind of weird to me what's been kind of going on. Have you been having that similar kind of experience on Twitter with different profiles following you that that are I guess more what I would consider liberal or faux progressives? I mean, I don't. I mean, maybe some of these people are well intentioned and genuine, but I mean, I don't know. What's your experience been?
I would say my experience mostly with like the concept of like the resurgence of Bernie Sanders and his policies and stuff like that is merely because um, Bernie Sanders has come out in support of Joe Biden. And I think they're trying to say, like they're trying as a public stance, they're trying to say, we're on board with like Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders policies. But if you look at the history, prior to that, literally everything about them screams out, no, we're not going to do any of that. No, we're not interested in going to the left. No, we're not interested. We don't really care what you think. And um, I have seen particularly nasty backlash against the resurgence simply because, you know, a lot of the stuff that Bernie was pushing, a lot of the stuff that Bernie wanted was literally made for this moment. And yet the best we have is, Joe Biden, and he's not really interested in
Well,
pushing like,
well, and that goes to something that an issue which I was having, which always comes back to this reoccurring thing, which I keep running into. A lot
mm-hmm,
of these people, they're like, well, just vote for Biden, and then once we get Biden in there, Biden will do this. And like, have you seen Biden's like crime policy? And I'm like, yes, I have. I've debated this with multiple people, and I said one of the big problems which you have with Biden's crime policy issue is it doesn't change one of the biggest contributors to police violence and a lot of these illegal search and seizures. It's the war on drugs. As long as you have the war on drugs still going on and still going on through black and brown communities, police are still going to be doing a lot of this stuff. As long as you have the mentality of the police that they need to go and stop crime, and you can look at the opioid epidemic as a sickness or a wellness issue, but you can't look at some of the ills or crimes in the Black and Latino communities as the same things, as mental health issues, as maybe just needs. Like, I was listening to. I know I'm a little all over the place, but this I was
Mhm.
just watching Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro, and they throw out kind of the statement. Well, two of they both make statements which I had issues with. I'll take Joe Rogan's statement first because I like Joe Rogan. So I'm gonna go after him first to show that. I will go after the people who I agree with also. Joe Rogan made the comment that if they did reparations and they gave 80,000 out to ADOS people basically that they would just spend the money and everybody would be back to where they were before. And I was a little taken aback by that because I'm thinking,
That's the
do you know
disappointment.
how much, do you know how much 80,000 is? And what you're basically saying is that you think a whole culture of people don't have the financial maturity to be able to handle themselves if they had a little bit of financial breathing room. And my question has been, the Republicans argue if you give us more tax money back, we can be able to do more for ourselves and take care of ourselves better. Well, why doesn't that argument work in reverse with black people saying, give us what was due from our ancestors and maybe we can do something with that also? I don't get why it's always felt that it needs to be controlled still by some other entity. It needs to be put into some kind of social programs or some kind of schools. And my issue is the government, for the most part, the Federal Reserve, all these things are controlled by powerful white people for the most part. Most of the people who donate and contribute to these people are powerful white people who do not live
Mhm.
this experience at all, but continuously tell people that, you know what, you can't give those people money. I don't get how nobody connects that little issue, how that's not just a tinge bit racist. And those people who propagate that same narrative, that's racist also.
I didn't even know we
I'll
did
let you
that.
respond to
So
that, and then I'll tell you the Ben Shapiro part.
okay. I do believe in. Well, I do believe in reparations. First of all, I think that's something that's been long overdue, and it just really stems back from systemic racism. It just stems back from this overwhelming need to not see you know the black community be able to rise, be able to stand on their own and consolidate their own power. Because if of course they had that power, that monetary power, well then that would be a group that they would no longer be able to control. They would be free to have their own autonomy and to be able to find their own self-reliance and to be able to find their own strength, um, independent from white America. So that is that is disappointing. So I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad you told me because I didn't know anything about it. So
Yeah, Ben Shapiro's comment. You know what? In fact, I think I have it here. I will. You know what? I will read it. It's a little bit
okay,
lengthy, but I will read the comment because I felt like it bothered me enough so that I was going to probably tweet it out
hmm,
so that others could kind of hear it because it's in the Ben Shapiro interview. It's clipped into one of his little shorter portions, so I recommend those who haven't seen it to take the time to see it. Um, and I guess my complaining issue is that some of our biggest allies still don't understand some of the things or connect some of the dots that they still need to understand to be able to actually rectify some of the real problems. So
right,
this was my response. I said, so Ben Shapiro's solution is police state, more large corporations. I say, you think race relations are bad between the black community and cops? do this, we will have new George Floyd every week. Not to mention making every black person in those neighborhoods across this country live like the Palestinians do in the West Bank. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, in the West Bank, they're living just like they lived in South Africa in apartheid state. Um, I said maybe that's his intention: complete control over the minorities and the poor through our authoritarian means. While Joe Rogan thinks we all just blow 80,000 and be back to struggling. Yeah, I gave you that part. Well, I won't read the whole thing, but that was my part that was addressed mostly to Ben Shapiro. I think I said a couple of parts later on, but I won't do too much reading into that. I'll probably tweet out the full tweet later. But his idea that we need to have a bunch of cops in our neighborhoods first and foremost to go and crack down crime. And I argue, um, I grew up in these neighborhoods. I know what's going on there. And it's not that we need more police. We need more opportunity. And that opportunity, we don't need it from another multinational corporation who's going to come in and still judge us with some of the same discriminations they had before, who are going to come in and say, well, I don't like this person's name, and they're not going to hire them, who are still going to have, we're still going to have be accepting employees from all across the different city and not giving any difference to those minorities in those communities, which might need that opportunity, which is going to lead to probably more, what's the word called, gentrification, and pushing them out of those areas. And what I argue is, if you gave Black people reparations and Native Americans and some other groups, I my views on reparations get very expensive, and I honestly haven't heard anybody detail it in the opinions I have. So now I'll get into that later. But if you honestly give them those opportunities and means, we can build our own, businesses and opportunities. I mean, do you honestly think that our only sole purpose is just to have some money and go and blow it and go back to working for somebody else? Many of us
No.
have many goals, dreams, ambitions, which we would like to chase. I've decided that politics is where I want to focus my efforts no matter what, because I feel there's too many ills in the world that need to be, addressed and at least shined a light on. But
Mm.
there are a lot of other, young Black and brown, brothers and sisters who maybe they want to go to school, to better themselves. Maybe they want to move to a different city. Maybe they have a spouse who's living somewhere else, and they could, move in together and get. I mean, there's a multitude of situations which that can help with. And my argument, which I felt, which a lot of white people don't understand, and I'm not saying all white people, so anybody who listens to this, keep that in mind. What they don't
Right.
understand is, who owns majority of the businesses right now? White people,
White
right?
people.
Now, where are Black people still going to have to shop when they get that money? With white people.
White shop. Right, with white people.
So what I'm saying is, even when you give reparations to American descendants of slavery, that money still it still moves around and it goes into multiple hands. It's not going to stay necessarily in the Black community. It's going to move into the Asian community. It's going to move into the Jewish community. It's going to move in the other areas, because now you have another portion of the population that has more disposable income that can actually have more of an economic effect. What do you think?
Uh, I agree with you. I agree that, especially with how America works now, that money could never stay consolidated into one place. I mean, of course, I could see, like a shrewd, smart Black person creating, like, maybe the next Amazon, or maybe like the next Nike or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I could honestly see that. But the majority of the money will just go back into other, back into different areas, back into other communities, and of course, trying to make themselves better and trying to make the world a better place, or paying off debt and paying off debt and fixing their credit, which also still helps America as a whole. So I'm just, it's hard for it's hard for me to see instances where we want to bring up instances of accountability, or we want to bring up actions that show accountability, and still it feels like America's spinning its wheels and it's not going anywhere for like singular petty reasons that ultimately don't work or don't really make any sense, and just ultimately shut down any lines of communication. It's a little depressing to hear that still now in the 21st century, still just a bunch of petty reasons for people to say no, this cannot happen. This is a bad idea. We stereotype we're going to stereotype an entire group of people because not everybody's the same. Not everybody would respond in a negative way with the money. So it's just something culturally America will have to work through before we can see it. So I mean, we've made some progress, but we're from their responses, it just shows that we're not there yet.
Well, I figure, here, let me take a sip real quick before I tell you my opinion and my theory on reparations. As I went back and done more research and looking at things, what I've noticed is how far back and how intertwined the slave trades were. And in my assessment, not only did America get mostly wealthy. Okay, you know what? For a minute, let's go back and let me do a little bit of history. For those who may not know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the actual origins and beginnings of the slave trade. And you can look this up if you don't know this information, or a lot of people don't know this extensive level of information, because it's not the 1619 and forget all that nonsense. That's focusing on a small portion that's later. You have to go back to origins and start looking at the whole world history, and not only look at America, because where the first slave trades actually started out of, it started into South America. Um, you had a lot of that in South America, going out. Shoot, I'm getting myself mixed up, but you had a lot of this slavery going on in South America before it came to North America, which was easily 100 years before. Before that, you also had a lot of the slaves which were being brought into Europe, including the Catholic Church. The reason why slavery was pushed upon Africa so hardcore was because the Catholic Church basically sanctioned that anybody who was non Christian, specifically deemed, savages, mostly black people or indigenous people, were allowed to be enslaved. And the country which was basically given that permission in the beginning started off with Portugal. Next, it was Spain which got involved. But the moment the Netherlands got involved, the Netherlands took over the main delivery and transport throughout all of the major slave colonies, whether that was through what would be Canada, Europe, United States today, down through Central South America, wherever. And then they also uh, um, that also led to the British doing similar things on the other side of that coast and going into the Middle Eastern areas because you also had Arab slave trade also. So all of these things were all sanctioned under the Catholic Church and all started way back in the 1500s, early, well, not 1500s, I'm sorry, 1300s is when this actually started with the whole Portuguese and the Dutch. And Christopher Columbus was just the last person who got involved in this whole thing, and he was the last person to make it to the Americas in a sense. So, sorry. All that long history said, I feel that countries like the Netherlands, their royal family, I believe the UK, I believe uh, pretty much all of those European nations, and the United States and Canada, who are all involved in the slave trade, should basically pay reparations to any descendant of slavery who is outside of the United States and who did not move there by voluntary immigration. So long spiel there, but that's kind of my view. I feel like they displaced all of these people all over the world, and they reaped the benefits from it. And their royal families, which some stay royal families to this day, some transitioned into just wealthy families and governments and corporations and things like that. But these people all still have this wealth that they've extracted from slavery, you know. So I can't look at it as just United States anymore, in my opinion. I look at it as it's almost like a global issue with the major, with I think maybe seven. You know what? Let's just say the countries: the Netherlands,
Hmm.
Spain, Portugal, the UK, um, Ireland. I'm missing somebody else. France. Yeah, those would be the culprits right there. Those would be the major culprits. True. Later on, as Germans immigrated into certain areas, yes, they also engaged in it also. But the one major group that was not involved in the transatlantic slave trade from Europe would have been basically the Russians. I mean,
Oh, okay.
granted,
I didn't know. No, I didn't know
yeah,
any of that.
granted, they did have their own different slaves and different things happen, but they were not involved in the major transatlantic slave, routes. That was all those nations. That's the reason why South Africa had, all of those Dutch who lived down there. That's the reason why they had a minority white ruled, country because it all originated back from the slave trades. You know,
Wow.
that's why the
It's
Dutch
messed
family
up.
is worth $8 billion because of the slave trade. That small little tiny island and that family of roughly about 20 people is worth $8 billion. That's why. Um, you know, the same thing with the British royalty. Now their money comes from more than just slavery. Their money comes from human trafficking, everything. I mean, raping, pillaging, colonialism, everything. But if you go back further enough back in those times, Great Britain, Portugal, Spain, and France all had the same kind of dominating power, kind of like the United States does at this time. And they just went around wreaking havoc on the rest of the world. It did not help that for one, that they were in coordination together. For two, that when they were exposed to most indigenous populations, their diseases killed mostly everybody. So it made it a lot easier to dominate the foes when you just being near them kills them. So, when you look back to how the white supremacy going all the way back to the Catholic Church led through the slave trades. It led to, I might get myself in a little trouble here, but I believe it was the 1611 revision from the Catholic Church when they ripped out certain passages in the Bible. And some of those passages referred to, freeing the slaves and things like that. And it left in passages like how you should treat your slave nice, and it left in certain little passages like that. The passages about being more submissive, but stripped out a lot of the passages where it talked about this is what'll happen if you enslave people. This is what'll happen. So it left a lot of that stuff out of there, and that rolls on into the Jim Crow time. Now, the only difference which separates America for the most part from these other nations is America continued after slavery to try to keep as close as they can relationship to a form of slavery, by keeping the people down, by not giving them opportunity, and that persisted into this day. It might not, like I told somebody, I said, it might not be that you or some of your friends who are white are racist. If you only live around a bunch of white people and these are your only friends, and when they come to look for a job, who are you going to hire? You're going to hire your friends, those people around you. And so, as the systemic racism has completely segregated the society and the money has been pushed into certain hands, and those people have naturally, evolved up the ladder, that's where the whole cronyism issue comes in, because you're only giving the opportunity out to your other friends and families and buddies. You're not taking care or giving the opportunity to that young black kid or young Asian kid or young Latino kid or young Muslim kid. You're not giving them those opportunities because you're just, and somebody explained it perfectly. It slipped out his mouth. He's like, well, of course I'm going to hire the people I'm comfortable with. I didn't take that as him being racist. I took that as most people in general go for the familiar over, who they don't know. And society is done a really good job at separating people into categories and then telling you this is who these people are.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Hollywood. I mean, you look at Hollywood, especially back in the 80s and 90s, outside of like the Cosbys and a couple of shows like that, everything that showcase black males or Latino males on TV was negative. Everything. It was always gang member. It was always a criminal. It was always a thug. That's what you always saw. And then you combine that with the images which you saw on TV, on the news. What did you see on the news all the time? Black on
crime. Right, black on black crime. The war on drugs.
Exactly. But ask yourself, at the same time, if you look up these statistics, were there still not white crimes or Asian crimes or Latino crimes going on all over the city at the same amount? Why were they specifically showing black on black crime? It's to frame a narrative. It's to put things into your head,
Specific narrative.
And if you already have a segregated society and you keep pumping these images, even the people who feel they're not racist will say, well, they take more of an empathetic, I just feel bad for these people. I don't know why they just can't get themselves straight. You get what I'm saying? But that's still racist. You just don't even realize it because it's well intentioned,
It's not overt racism. It's not overt racism. It's low level racism. It's the racism that you've grown accustomed to um, noticing in society because society has deemed it as normal. So it's a it's a reality that all of us have to face like every day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Consciously have to be aware of it every day.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just like this video I was watching the other day, and it was this guy who I guess he gets questions from random people, and it's ask a Palestinian a question, and he's walking around, Israel, and he is asking Palestinians if if Israel was giving back to the Palestinians, what would happen to the Jews, or what should happen to the Jews? And unanimously, most of the people were like, they should leave. And he's like, but why do you feel that they should leave? He's like, well, because this is our land. You didn't. This is our land. You just took this. And he's like, yeah, but the Torah says this. And he's like, yeah, but I don't believe in that. You're trying to force your beliefs to make political decisions. And I was like, uh, I just thought that was interesting. And so he just kept asking. So he
Thought that
started
was I
asking.
think it's hilarious.
Yeah, he started asking the people, "Do you feel oppressed by the Israeli government?" And my thing is, that's a yes or no question. It shouldn't take much elaboration. They shouldn't have to explain to you why they feel oppressed.
Right.
Um, and I mean, I want to say probably 90% of the people will say yes. And that persisted in him trying to explain away why they're not oppressed. Like one guy's like, yeah, I go because I have this one ID and I'm not allowed to get this other ID. This one courthouse that's over there, you guys can go in there and you guys have like 20 clerks and speedy quick lines. But over here, we have like 3 clerks. The lines are all backed up. All our equipment's all jacked up. And he's like, yeah, that feels oppressive. He's like, every time I go somewhere with my mom, who wears a hijab, um, she's always pulled over to be searched and checked and all that. It's like, of course we feel it. And the guy is just trying to, well, but that can happen sometimes. And well, I was searched this time, and I'm like, some people you
It's not
just
the
never
same
know.
thing. Right.
I
It's
mean,
just
and
not the same thing.
everybody said the reason why it reminded me of that because you said like it's like a feeling that you can't really explain, and all those people were having a hard time explaining what that feeling was. Um, I honestly feel like I can explain that feeling. What that feeling is when See, here's what a lot of white people don't get. The population still is about 55% white. Um, 60, possibly 60%. I'm not sure. It's 55 to 60%, we'll say. Even if you have millions and millions and millions of compassionate white people who are on your side, that still leaves millions and millions and millions and millions of white people who are not on your side. And that is always going to be a threat when you know that you never know who has the power. Which if the person you're working for is one of those white people who is decent hearted, or if they're not decent hearted, you don't know if this cop that you stop is decent hearted or not decent hearted. You don't know if you go to the hospital and you got a doctor who really wants to save you or doesn't want to save you. I mean, every aspect. I I can't necessarily say for every Latino person, but I know for pretty much every black person I know, everything in your life is uncertain. It doesn't matter if you are a black person flipping burgers making, $10 an hour, or if you are, Colin Kaepernick, apparently. It does
Mm-hmm.
not matter. You all have that anxiety because at any moment our freedom, our life could be just snatched away just like that. It's the same thing with Palestinians because they know that that same kind of thing can happen. I mean, I heard a story about a mother who, her and her family were completely burned alive in the house. Those kind of things are happening like that all the time in the West Bank. And they they said that yeah, we pretty much know who did it, but the police are not willing to really
Aren't gonna
serve.
do anything about it.
Yeah, they took one guy into custody for a little bit. The guy who was there, he's like, they gave him 30 days, and that was it. And the guy's asking the question. He's like, no, 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 no. Well, they're still looking. They haven't found the guy. That wasn't the punishment or whatever. So it's like, even when somebody's saying no, we live in this community. We're telling you what's happening. We're telling you what we see firsthand. You still have these people who are still coming over and trying to tell you, no, 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 this is a better plan. Just like it's the same thing with Biden. Listen to Biden and his people try to say, well, no, well, Biden's going to do this and do that and whatever. I'm like,
Right. I have that right. Biden is. If there was ever a person that was unfit for a moment in general, I mean, I would say in history, I would say Joe Biden is completely unfit for this moment. I mean, if we're talking about the systemic change that, that black people need, that the underprivileged need, that the, you know, that the, that the working class need, he's not it. He's not going to do it. And, those empty platitudes and that rhetoric, over and over again. I mean, it's just the same thing. Empty platitude, Trump's bad. More rhetoric, Trump's bad. Oh, I have policy, but that was only good like 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, it's great that you said, I think what he tried to do was say like 15 an hour, right? I think he wanted to start, he got on board with 15 an hour, and I was like, yeah, that was great. 10 years ago when you were in office.
yeah.
10 years ago when you were in office. That's no good now.
Like,
I'm
when
like,
people say that 15 an hour to me, I'm like, do you realize I live in California? Do you
right. I
realize
was
that?
like, it's not right.
We already have 15 an hour, and that ain't enough.
Man, right.
I mean,
I was like, if you're doing it indicative to each state, I'm like,
yeah, they don't understand different costs of living in different states.
right.
15 an hour might be a little bit much for maybe Mississippi, Louisiana, or something.
But like California, New York, I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna work.
Maryland, that's a joke. Yeah.
Right, that won't work. It won't work. And just, he's just behind. He's just behind. He's always behind. It's either performative or his policies are just behind. I'm just
like here. I'll tell you. In California, at least in my area, what you can typically expect for rent. I won't say what my rent is. I was able to luck out and get a blessed with a good deal, but the typical rent in my area is around 1,700 to 2,100, and that is for a 1 bedroom. It's for a 1 bedroom. Now, when I was in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, I was literally paying $490 for a studio apartment that was bigger than my place, which I pay now, which is multiple times more than that. And then I factor into like when I lived in Kansas City and I lived in townhomes for like 1,100. I'm in like a 3 bedroom like townhome with back patio and all this other stuff, finished and unfinished basements and pool tables and stuff. And it's like people don't understand when you get into different states, some things are better, some things are worse.
Some things are not. Mm-hmm.
Like when I lived in Kansas City or when I lived in Florida, another thing is race relations are massively different than they are in California. I mean, there's some good and bad in California too. Like I noticed there's a higher level of racism between blacks and mostly Mexicans. That's something which I didn't run into virtually at all, mostly while I was growing up. But I hear that, that's an issue kind of in the Southwest kind of territories in some parts of
Yeah.
Texas also. But growing up
Hmm.
in Kansas City, growing up in, growing up in Kansas City, living in Florida, living in a bunch of, staying in places all over the East Coast and, other countries and islands. And I never ran into what I was running into, you know, what I've ran into since I've lived here. And,
Yeah.
what I try to tell people is just it's different dynamics
It's
where
a
you
different
live.
experience with in different states. I mean, I went, I went to college. I went to college with people from like different states. I think why I went to school. One from Texas, one from Michigan, one from Washington D.C., one from Virginia. They all of us saw the world a little bit differently than say all of us saw the world a little bit differently than say the other person because of where we grew up. So still people not getting the fact that like rent and food costs here is probably going to be completely different than if I went to go get rent and food costs in California or in Oregon or in Seattle, Washington. I'm like, they're all different. And the fact that politicians, even though they're representative of like completely different states, still don't get that even now. It's a little disheartening. It's a little disheartening to notice that. It's a little disheartening to notice that we're still having this problem of explaining everybody's state is different, everybody's dynamics is different, the politics of even a blue state and another blue state still wildly different. So, you know, but yeah, that whole rent thing. I think I read an article that said the average to get like good rent. What is it? They said the average person should make $24 an hour to
Hmm.
if they wanted to handle rent or something like that. It was pretty high, and I was like, we're not anywhere near close. We weren't anywhere near close to that. So
Well, it's like New York, also in the same kind of situation. I mean, I guess I'll segue that onto another topic. I kind of want to talk about a couple other things first because um, I don't like to talk about sad stuff a lot of times. I like to try to avoid it if I can and let other people kind of do more of the talks on it. Michael Brooks. Michael Brooks,
yeah, that was
is
ooh that
another thing. Uh,
yeah that
and
that that upset me.
Yeah, I mean, I
That
wanted to
upset me.
talk
He was
about.
one of the good
I,
ones.
I definitely wanted to talk about that on this platform in particular because a lot of people can look at, well, Michael Brooks is a white Jewish guy. Um, what would he have to do with any kind of black community or black forum? And Michael Brooks was very connected to the black community in many ways. Definitely a friend to many in the black community, and he pushed for social justice issues. He pushed for economic issues that would have really impacted the black community, and he deeply cared about those issues. Um, Personally, he he impacted me to focus more on South American politics than I had previously. I did when I was in the military briefly, but he really exposed me to a lot of things and opened my eyes and taught me in a bunch of different things. And one thing about Michael, which I always notice, is he was never the type, no matter situations where I felt I would have gotten pissed off and said some things I probably shouldn't to people. Majority of the time throughout his whole career, I never really saw him lose his temper on people. I always
Right.
saw him try to look at things through different perspectives, no matter even if he was dealing with somebody who had negative viewpoints of it. And that was one thing I really, really admired about Michael Brooks, that um, he just came across as such a genuine and pure soul. And his approach to dealing with politics is almost reminiscent of, Stoics in, in the Greek days, that Stoic philosophy. Um, so for me, he definitely will be sadly missed. I don't know who fills a guy like Michael's shoes. My heart goes out to his family dearly. Um, just like we said, sadly with the passing of John Lewis last week, that nobody's perfect, nobody's a saint. I'm sure Michael had some issues where that if it goes into his closet, everybody could twist and turn however they want to. But as far as I knew of the man, he was a, a very decent, honest, humble, loving human being, and he'll be missed. He was definitely very unique, and my heart goes out to his family and all those people, all those people who are not his family, who might not have actually known him, who are feeling that sadness also. I mean, you have I even saw plenty of like more liberal or moderate accounts who hadn't heard of him, who were actually reaching out to a lot of lefties and saying, I realize how much he meant to you guys, and I want to extend my condolences also. And that really, I felt it really touched me in a way that they were able to recognize somebody that they've never even paid attention to, and that impact that it's had on our community. You know, I'm talking about our community, black community, and the left community as a whole, and even our kind of more smaller secular black left community.
Right. He carried an aura of clarity and understanding that I was always impressed by. It's rarely it's rarely a moment where you can see somebody speak and think, you know what? I understand. I understand. I can hear him out, and I feel like I walked away from the experience knowing a little bit more than I did than before I started talking to him. I think that's what Michael Brooks conveyed. Um, it's just something I wish more of the world had, to be quite honest. You just got this aura from him that he just wanted to make the world a better place. And the world lost a good one. So,
Well, here's something, also that I wanted to say, and I hope this doesn't offend, any people who are not faith people. Michael was strong in his Hebrew faith, um, and he based a lot of his political leanings on his religious beliefs. And whether you believe in his religious beliefs, or you believe in other beliefs, or you just don't believe in religion at all, um,
which I
we
don't,
all,
but right.
yeah, and I'm trying to
No, but I
give that.
understand what you mean. I
I,
get it. Go
I
on.
want I want to give that respect to those who are not believers, and I
Right.
don't want them to feel excluded from this. I want them to be able to take away at least this one thing here, um, that in things that you might not even agree with completely, there are beautiful things that you can take, beautiful lessons that you can pass on and push forward. And whether you believe in religion or not, there are good elements that you can take from it. And I'm not telling you you need to accept the religion. I'm not telling you not to accept the religion. That's all on you. I definitely believe in, everybody making their own choice. But I just say that wherever we can find goodness in things, let's just try to bring in those things and encompass those and in the things we're doing. Try to have more patience, in love with each other. And especially if you have people like Michael out there who you look at as as a thought leader, as somebody which you really had um, uh, almost like a bond, a chemistry, whether you met him or not. Um, if you have those people, uh, reach out to them. You know, let them know that you are inspired by some of the work that they're doing. Maybe they might reach back to you and be able to push you into a different consciousness of learning and seeing things differently. Um, I guess it's all I'll say on that. I don't want to get too. I don't want to get going in circles, and I don't want to get emotional about it because, I mean, I've talked to, I mean, through chat, I've talked to Michael like once or twice. Nothing major, but he just felt like such a genuine person, and I mean, it's sad to see him go. I mean, he's only a couple of years. He was only a couple of years younger than I am now. So, that I guess that's all I'll say on that. You wanted to say anything else on Michael
No,
Michael's?
man. I've seen so much love and outpouring for him. I'm just that one that one hit a little, that one hit a little close. But everyone just being, just their understanding and their reach and how they felt about him. It's just, I know nobody's perfect, but it was really cool to see that. So I'll miss I'll miss hearing his perspective, hearing his opinion, especially now when I feel like it's the most needed. So
Yeah,
I don't have anything else to say.
yeah, yeah. I guess I will take from a note. One of the things that Michael was talking about last, well, one of the last things that I noticed him talking about, because we're all busy with our different things. Um, and it was him with Lula, and it was going back over one of his old interviews and just seeing how professional and how prepared and how knowledgeable he was. Uh, it was exciting, and it's made me also really start focusing on inner workings of other nations' politics, because you start focusing on a couple of things. Everything's about money, power, sex, all that stuff like that. It's all just rolled into government systems. Um, and you look at what's going on back and forth with China and United States. Um, they are basically having proxy wars, shutting down consulates back and forth. What do you think about that?
Of course, I always particularly worry about like um, war, in, impending war, impending wars, in regards to nations like that. But as this continues, I'm just afraid of what's going to happen on like home soil. Like someone brought up on Twitter with me the other day about how like Asians are getting like attacked and um, ostracized over like being blamed over the coronavirus, and I'm just like that kind of that kind of movement over there is just going to continue to fan the flames of that stuff happening over here. So, you
I
know,
mean, it's scary that we're in a time where it's that easy for everybody to so easily jump on little racist tropes and things like that. And
hmm
I feel like us in the black community in particular, need to be, especially keen and sensitive when racism is going on in other communities besides our own. That's one thing which I'm not going to try to beat up on any people who are pushing for more strength and unity in the Black community. Not at all. But I just wish that more people would also try to keep that same consistency across the board when we see some of our other brothers and sisters who are struggling. Because how I look at it is, whether you believe in religion or not, it's proof that everybody started in Africa. So we're all related. We're all brothers and sisters in some way, some shape, some form. And I'll let everybody else sort out how we got to this point. But we're all one race. We're all the same people, and we have decided to treat each other, you know, as if certain ones of us are less or we're above. And us as a
Mhm.
Black community, we need to be at the forefront of those things, especially even if it's abroad. And that's one thing I was saying. Like for Michael, Michael was paying attention into South American politics. Did he have to pay attention to Brazil? No.
No,
There's plenty of
he
issues
didn't.
going on in America, and he did stay involved in those issues also. But he also took the extra effort to care about other people and other suffering in other countries. So that's why I wanted to bring up, that little back and forth tit for tat which Trump and China are doing. And I'm
Right.
glad you
It's
brought
like,
up about what's going on with it, because there's definitely the crackdown and more oppression on the Chinese Uyghurs. That photo which came out, and one of their one, I guess, ambassadors tried to say, well, that's just, they're transporting prisoners. That's nothing. That's nothing to look at funny. And it's like, all right, if you say so. If you say so. I call BS on that, but we all need to constantly be pointing the finger. It's not like we have any kind of power in the government in particular, or at this time, because I believe it is power. I mean, it is possible, but as long as we are a voice to constantly push back. I mean, sadly, the people who were there at George Floyd, they weren't able to get the cops to actually stop and save him, but they were able to shine a light on that situation, which started a chain reaction in this country, you know. And I feel like if we're always eyes on what's going on around, and always willing to point out things and call out things, that's the only way we start to change a lot of these things.
I agree. Just more
So,
awareness to what's going on
well, I guess
just going on in like other, well, go on. Just going on other areas,
well,
basically.
I was just gonna say that that leads to that topic that we discussed when you first got on, that you wanted to talk about what's going on in Portland, about the unmarked agents.
Right. They're talking about doing it in Chicago. They're talking about doing, I think Louisville's going to become another hot point, but it's not coming up in, it's not coming up anywhere that I read, but, I know there's the black militia group is in Louisville. It's possible. I'll keep looking, but that's the one that worried me a little bit. I worry about Atlanta a bunch because we had that down in Stone Mountain. Um, just a lot of stuff just a lot of stuff I wanted to bring up. I guess my biggest problem with Portland is that, of course, you know, Joe Biden spoke up about it, but I don't see him offering any of the systemic change needed to make sure that what happened in Portland, what's happening in other cities with these unmarked federal officers will ever happen again. I don't see him as being the person that says, you know what, when I step into office, I'm going to make sure that this never happens again. I'm going to enact changes and I'm going to enact policy and defund folks so that we'll defund organizations. So type of this type of thing will never happen to, American citizens, out there protesting injustice will ever happen again. It was just more perform. It was.
Can I give you an unpopular? Well, I don't know if it's unpopular.
Go ahead, give me.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
If I'm being a conspiracy theorist at this moment, but I knew about Portland, I knew about Chicago, but I didn't know about all those other cities, which you told me about that they're planning to enact this plan. So what I think is going on is, if you look at what's going on with the economy, we're going into basically a depression. Congress is not doing anything to really push back on it. It's going to continue to spiral. You have the corona numbers going up also. You have a combination of all these things. I think it's possible, since he's demonized Antifa and the left and people like that, they're maybe trying this out, seeing who they could just round up, throw in jail for a week or a weekend or whatever, get back out and see what the consequences are, see how much pushback for when things actually really get nasty.
That's not an unpopular opinion. I actually thought that too. People are talking about, we're in a recession right now. We're rolling into a depression, and there were a couple of people saying, this feels like a dry run to see what they can do about basically stopping the millions that will probably be out here on the street because no unemployment is coming and millions will get evicted. I heard about I think it was Columbus and then another place, making these big stadium filled eviction courtrooms to handle the massive amount of evictions they're about to do on people. So your opinion is not unpopular. I did know I did notice it. The signs are definite. The signs definitely do keep me up at night because, of course, this would be the second recession I've been through in like the last, decade and a half. And to realize that I survived the last recession only to wake up and go into a depression, years later.
That's what I argued, and I don't want to say argued, I guess. That's what I discussed with somebody earlier today on Twitter. And I was saying that I won't deny that Obama did stabilize the world economy, not just America, the world economy, because when our economy is going, it sends a chain reaction all the way around.
Right.
I won't deny that. But the problem is, many, especially in the Black and Latino communities, did not recover also. They've just kind of been survival mode for the last 10 years. And I'm sorry, people are not really excited for Biden, because I'm like, what's going to be the difference? We're just going to have somebody who's not going to intentionally say racist and nasty stuff. Now we'll just have a guy accidentally say it. I mean, for instance, what he just said recently this week, I don't know if you heard about it, about Trump being, he's like, well, there have been people who have tried to be president who have been racist before. But Trump
he said there's never been a racist president other than Trump. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
I'm doing a detailed. I got a video which I'm doing this.
Right. I was like, oh my God.
I wanted to try to get all the information in there and condense it down so I can do all 45 presidents. Actually, I did 46 because I don't see much difference on the race issue between who the 46th president will be, whether it is Biden or Trump. I believe both are
Right.
racist. So when I go through that list, you will really anybody catch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. But that
Right.
that video on the channel later. Um, Anything else that you want? Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Since we're talking about Biden right now, I guess I'll ask you on this VP pick. Granted, I
Mm.
don't really care what's going to happen with the Biden administration. I just don't have a lot of faith in it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry for those who are listening who that might bum out, but I just don't have a lot of faith. Um, that said, who do you think he is going to pick? Because he says he's going to do the pick by August 1st. Who do you think he's going to pick?
I would say it would probably either be Harris, Warren. I see a woman. Sadly, I see a woman probably. I mean, I think it's a terrible idea and that shouldn't happen, given his background and his
Well,
history and
let me have you clarify. Let me have you clarify first. Not a bad idea that a woman be vice president, correct? It's a bad
right, I don't
idea.
right, I'm fine with a woman being vice president. I want a woman to be president. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
given
didn't
by
want people to go up in the comments about that because I know what you mean.
no, okay. No, I am fine with a woman being vice president. I'm just given Joe Biden's history, that woman that would be his vice president was spending an inordinate amount of time literally trying to justify, you know, um, his history, his background, especially given what happened with AOC and Representative Yoho, right? I mean, that discussion will be at the forefront of the situation. Like, I know, uh, I know the GOP will probably say, you know, if AOC has a problem with Yoho doing it, and but you can call it out in GOP. Why didn't anybody do that same thing about Joe Biden? I mean, I see it coming.
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
fear I that's one thing which I'm preparing and I'm trying to keep my eye out for to see if I see this
right.
because the way I see it shaped up to at this point, it's down to only a handful of candidates. Obviously, Kamala Harris is one of the leading candidates. Um, Elizabeth Warren is still in contention. Um, Lately, I've heard Karen Bass more often.
I knew.
Uh,
I thought it would pick. I thought Bottoms was one of them, but I
no,
don't. It didn't
Bottoms
hurt.
she's kind of fell out of a lot of the top
Okay.
three kind of considerations. She might still be a dark horse. I mean, don't
Right.
rule that out, even though I hate
Right.
that term, but you get it. Um,
Right. I understand what you're saying.
um, and another one which I still think has a possibility would be not was it Susan Rice?
Mm-hmm.
Those are
I
the
heard of
ones
her.
which I see, and the reason why is because Biden, if you really look at Biden throughout his history, good or bad, is always focused on foreign policy and things like that. I think he has terrible foreign policy instincts and decisions, but that's what he focuses on. If he's going to focus on somebody who would have that similar thinking in foreign policy and the way he thinks in foreign policy, that will lead towards a Susan Rice. I don't know how
Okay.
much control he's having over this decision overall because I don't know if he's doing it by handlers. I don't know if donors are really pushing the decision. I don't know if the DNC is really having a lot of influence. So who knows at this point, or if he's actually all the way there and it's just not Jill. It could be a
Right.
gazillion things we don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
um, all I can do is go on what I know about Joe Biden and the things I'm seeing. Um, Kamala Harris, I feel, is dangerous for them because Well, it can be good because I know she does have her own supporters. She has her own set of supporters. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how many that actually is in actual voters, but I know
Mm-hmm.
at least online she has a big enough ferocious following. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact of when she went after him in the primaries, and when Steve Colbert asked her about what she said about it, and her answer was, well, it's just a debate. I think that is not going to age well if she's a nominee, and I think that's going to be a point they're going to attack her
Exactly.
with, and so that's a drag. I also think they're going to say, well, you're talking about Black Lives Matter, but then you have your crime bill, and then you have Kamala Harris, who was out in California locking up black people. I just
Right.
I worry about that when that message gets out to the whole entire country. How it would be put out through the Trump campaign. With Warren, you already know
Oh,
a
I
lot
I
what he's
think
gonna say
Warren's just a
with Warren. And I honestly think that the bankers are the donors. They are not going to tolerate Warren. And it's not because she's some super lefty. It's just because they know that on the one thing she is left on, as far as going after the banks, she would do that. And they don't want that. The other thing is they think she's more left than she is, and they don't want to take the chance that she might actually do some more lefty stuff, or maybe influenced by Bernie or Jayapal or some of the other lefties. So that's why I think
now. I know.
they don't want to touch. They feel like she's just too risky, so they don't want to
Well,
touch Warren.
wait. Did you? I don't know if you had heard about it, but I know a lot of people are a bunch of people are low key afraid it was going to be Hillary
Oh,
that was
I
going to
still
be
am.
her. Yeah, I was
I,
like, a bunch of people are low key frightened of that, and I am too. And I'm like,
I've said this numerous times. I did my tinfoil hat one, which I was supposed to be doing a series, but never got back to it. But I did that on my channel, and then I did that on my show with the Annihilation Cage with Nile. I said that also, and so I fear that because
I
they want
fear
somebody
that
who's still
immensely.
going. They want somebody that's still going to be in the mix of the system and the control. And I look at that's why I don't think it could be Abrams because Abrams looks like she got a little bit too much of a mind of her own. And once she got in there, she would be hard to control for them, good or bad. I don't know if that would be good for us either, but I just worry about that. Uh, Justine says, "Please not Hillary." I completely agree with you. Completely
Right.
agree
I
with
was like, I mean, Hillary. Well, I worried about Abrams for the exact same reason. I mean, Abrams is just, Hillary liked her. There's a lot of strong, you get a lot of strong Hillary vibes off. Get a lot of strong Hillary vibes off of her. She seemed like someone who would, who seems like she would have your back publicly, but privately, I think she would be telling, she would be telling the bankers and the rich people, you know what, it's okay, I got your back, everything's good, right? I mean, you know,
you. This is
it's
this
just too
is how
many.
I see. This is how. Sorry to interrupt you, Emmanuel, but this is
No,
how
go
I
ahead.
see Hillary, Biden, and all of that whole ilk. Basically, they're like scales, and on one side of the scale, here, let me make sure I get my hands in the camera. One side of the scale,
Mm-hmm.
you have their bankers, and I mean, and all their donors, and all these people on this side, and all the special interests and the lobbyists. On this other side, they have the American people. And they know the American people are not watching the scale that much, but the bankers are watching it pretty hardcore. And so, as long as they start tanking more and more and more and more and more to the banker side and less to the people side, they try to see what's the balance that we can get away with before they know. Oh, okay, all right, we'll try to balance it back a little. Okay, all right, and that's what they keep doing
Right,
with
and they
us.
did that song and dance back. They did that song and dance back in 2016, and I've been doing
They
this for
do it
and
every 4 years. They
right,
do it every
but
4 years.
this time feels different. It feels like the Democratic Party is doing the exact same thing, but the situation is wildly
Well,
different.
it's different because of the desperation. They have a
Right.
desperation that's different than last time. They went in 2016 cocky, overconfident.
Right.
Coming off Obama, they just knew, Hillary's just going to ride the train right in, because you got to remember, these people put Hillary up before. They wanted Hillary to be the nominee. She lost against Obama. They wanted Hillary to be the nominee even before that. But she didn't run in that time. They have a deep philosophical belief after Bill Clinton that Hillary, for some reason, needs to be president. And they have been constantly pushing towards that goal. To the point now that all those people who used to work in the campaign, who used to push a lot of their counter scheduling. I don't know if you're old enough to remember counter scheduling, but that's something Bill Clinton and his campaign came up with to punch back to your leftward flank always when you try to pivot to the middle to try to get moderate voters. So they've been doing this since the 90s, since like 92 that they've been pushing this. Same thing Biden's doing right now. The only thing is, okay, they've learned that they at least have to give some rhetoric. And that's the only evolution that happened with Obama. Obama realized, I got to change my rhetoric up. I got to sound like I'm giving something. I got to say I'm kind of giving some stuff, but keep it vague. And then, once I get in the office, I'll just blame it all on the Republicans.
Right. And I think a lot of people are trying to sell Biden off as Obama because Obama keeps coming in, and especially after he said the racist president comment, Obama came in and tried to, it felt like kind of Obama came in afterward.
This is what I tell anybody. When they want to bring up Obama. Go back to Black wealth. When you look at Black wealth, what it was before Bush, and don't get me wrong, people out there listening, I am not blaming any of the whole crash on Obama or the Democrats per se. This, I believe, is solely on the Bush administration and their whole, laissez-faire capitalism model. This is all on them. I didn't agree with the way Obama exactly handled things, but if you look at what's happened, Black people, Latinos, and a lot of the people, lower income whites, and some people who were, say, middle class, who of multiple races, who were just kind of floating along okay. Those people who had any kind of medical emergency, any kind of thing that happened, and then that happened at the same time, boom, it wrecked all of these people. And everybody's still just kind of piecing together, and they've been just kind of surviving. And I don't see how long that's sustainable. How long can you just keep people docile to just, hey, accept the table scraps? Even the most loyal dog is going to bite you if you keep kicking it,
I think that the thing about Obama with me, because of course I voted for him.
So
I voted for him the first. Right. I voted for him the first time.
I voted for him twice.
Right. I only stopped the second time when, I will say, to be honest, that I idolized him. I would even go so far as to say I deified him. I believe that he could literally fix every single problem in America. That he would get elected and he would mystically fix all the problems in the world, in America, and make everything, and then make all the problems go away and make everything all better. That was how naive I was back then. Because that's the time when the recession really hit. It really hurt. It affected my family on on a profound level. It affected me on a profound level in ways that I still haven't even been able to recover from even now. So, I you still even have people saying today, like if Obama ran again today, I would still vote for him. And I'm just like that
Nope.
whole right. I was like that'll never be me. Okay. I mean, it's nice that he's saying stuff and stuff like that. And I'm not knocking all the good that he's done. It's just for me, it didn't go far enough. All right. It
Well,
just did not go ahead.
but well, I'm sorry. I'll say one thing on Obama because I try to avoid talking about Obama a lot because it frustrates me so much. One of the
Well,
things
I think
I
me and you
hate
have
most
I agree with you. The frustration. I'll give you.
one of
There's
the
a
things
frustration
I
about him
hate
that I have.
the most in life is wasted talent. Wasted talent is one of the things I hate more than anything. If I can see that somebody is great at doing something and they won't take advantage of that. Perfect example, a kid I grew up with, great at basketball. He decided that he'd rather spend his time smoking. I thought he could have been outstanding. He thought otherwise. Whatever. But wasted talent in whichever space. And I look at Obama had the masses. Obama
Mhm.
could have told people, this is what we're doing. He could have made declarations and got things done.
Yeah,
But Obama negotiated against himself most of the time
yeah,
and
yeah.
was his own biggest problem. And what what I didn't get at the time is because there were so many racist people who were attacking Obama simply for the color of his skin, it made me have to defend him on those grounds and not be able to address a lot of the real concerns that were going on because we're having to defend the racist stuff so much. And that's what I used to tell some of the
Mhm.
people who hated Obama. I'm like, if you guys can stop making everything about race and stop coming across as so obviously bigoted in everything you say, and well, for one, you give your criticisms across the board to all the parties who are doing that stuff. But you guys only complain about this stuff that it's a black president doing it. You didn't care about it while Bush was just doing it. You didn't care about it when Reagan did it. You didn't care about it while Bush Senior. You don't. You just. But oh, the black guy does it. Now you got a problem. Um, I feel like here's my issue, which I try. I guess this is as simple as I can make it. A country basically is let's relate it to like a team or like a family. Now, in that family unit, you're going to want to make sure you take care of every single person in the family. On a team, you're going to want to make sure that everybody on the team is trained to the best of their ability to help the team. The same with this nation and how I look at it. Your goal should always be to focus on the lowest of us. Should always be to focus on those people who are most in need. It shouldn't be we're focusing at the wealthy, and then the wealthy will find some way to trickle it down to the lesser wealthy, and then the lesser wealthy will focus on a program for the middle class, and in the middle class they can allocate something down. I mean, it's the same thing with a lot of these approaches, which I hear that come from these elite politicians. They don't want to listen to Black Lives Matter. They don't want to listen to all these other groups. They want to come up with a solution for what they think you should be doing and how they think it should be done. And then they say, hey, we gave you a solution, be happy.
I was like, that's not going to work. I mean, I understand what you're saying when you say that people that I guess the elite in the Democratic Party are desperate. I think the people are desperate too, and I think the
Oh, we're
depression is
all
really going to. Yeah, I was like, I think the depression is really going to expose
yeah,
a lot
we're
of that.
definitely boiling. We're definitely at a boiling inflection point right now in history
Right.
because this is the reason why they do so much censorship. Because I just saw a Convo Couch. So far, I guess hopefully they don't take us down, or maybe that's why people are dropping in and out of our stream. I don't know, but um, on YouTube, on Periscope, and I believe on Facebook, they're blocking them from broadcasting. It's all right that you're late. Thank you for joining. Um, but they're blocking, and the reason why is they realize all these people who have not had a voice, who have not been able to speak out, now they have a platform. Now they can say something back. Now they can get pushback. That's why, even though I think Barry Weiss is a little a little loopy,
Yeah.
when she said that Twitter is the New York Guide's editor, that's true. Because when they say stuff that goes off cuff, Twitter comes after them. And sometimes it's their own people on Twitter. Sometimes it's our side on Twitter, which is correcting them, you know.
I think it was John Grazino. I think it was John. I should remember this. This is John Grazino. When they were talking about Twitter losing ad revenue and about to go into paid subscription, of course, when they were talking about that, he was like, he was offering a suggestion. I offered this suggestion too. Why isn't Twitter just moved into like a public utility? He said he got massively throttled. He said he got massively throttled like immediately after he said that, and I was like, so
Yeah,
I believe
it'll get you in trouble. I honestly just feel that they don't like the fact of average people actually are able to say back what they feel. And that's the reason why, you had in the primaries represented in, well, Bernie voters are saying this and saying this. It's honestly, all of them aren't even Bernie voters. Um, you have and you have people from all different camps, from every camp. I saw negative and nasty messages. So I'm not trying to isolate anybody. I don't condone being nasty or hateful to people. I can't say that people haven't pissed me off and I haven't jumped down people's throat myself. But I try to avoid that behavior and hope that others will do the same. But all you're getting is you're getting the frustration, you're getting the anger, you're getting people who are saying, no, you're full of it, you're lying, and you know you're lying. I mean, like, I kind of fight this little battle back and forth with my mom. My mom is very, very civil and very, very kind and sweet. And I fight that battle on trying to make sure I try to be hospitable and kind and sweet. But when we're dealing with politics, I know you don't get to the levels that these people get to without having extensive education in multiple subjects. Most of these people have spent, like, whole summers in Europe traveling and all that. So they understand the governmental systems in a lot of these other countries. They understand some of the struggles that are going on in these countries. They understand the healthcare systems. They understand universal healthcare. They understand all of these things. But they sit there and pretend that they don't get it. That I don't know what this is. No, this health executive says this can't work. And now they're being pushed back on. Oh shoot, it looks like we lost Emmanuel there. Well, I guess I'm probably running a little long anyway, so I guess I might end it there if I don't hear back from him soon. I guess I'll give you guys a couple of updates to look forward to. The Biden video that I talked about just a second ago, I will be dropping that sometime later on tonight. I'm going to go through each and every single president, show you who's racist, who wasn't racist. There are surprisingly some presidents. Some people say the first nine presidents owned slaves. Actually, that's not true. I'll show you which one didn't, um, and I'll show you some presidents who actually were very benign in an earlier time and were much more decent than many of us remember them to be as. Also on my other channel, The Political Matrix, I have a couple of new videos that I will be dropping either tonight or tomorrow. Look for them there on my other channel, The Political Matrix, on YouTube. And make sure you guys tune in and catch me and Niall later on tonight on the Annihilation Cage. Oh, I got Emmanuel back here. Let me add him back to the stream before we get out of here. Hey,
Right.
Emmanuel.
I don't
I
know
was
what
getting ready
happened,
to
man.
close
I'm
out the
sorry.
stream. Oh, it's okay. I was getting ready to close out the stream. I gave them a little bit of information about what I have working on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, with our show, the Political Matrix. For those of you guys who don't know, Emmanuel is one of the co-hosts on the show. We have an area where we'll be putting shorter videos on, and then we will have a weekly sit down just like we do here, but it's going to be a little bit more in depth on a whole different subject dealing with politics, but not really. But yes and no, you guys will figure it out. Um, and that will be on Saturday. Saturday works for you too, right, man?
Yeah, Saturday's fine.
Cool. So that will be me, Emmanuel, and I'm sure you guys know Chris Richards. He is the
Right.
third host. We all be uploading our own little different videos and different content we want to show you also throughout the week. So I guys hope you guys enjoy that. Um, Anything you wanted to add, Emmanuel? Anything you got working on that you want to let people know about?
Um, I'm trying to get. I'm trying to see about getting a podcast my own podcast up before uh Saturday. I'm not. I'm still trying to. I'm still doing some editing. I'm still doing some editing there. I should be done by the middle of the week. So, if they follow me, they'll see it because I'll put up I'll post up the first episode there. So if they can just follow me on Twitter, that'd be great.
Yeah, and anybody who, if they feel they're having a little bit of trouble finding the content, just hit me a DM. You guys know my content, or if you guys don't know, my Twitter handle is at I got two of them. You have at Marcus James Cage. That's MarcusJamesCage, and my other one is at Real Marcus J Cage on Twitter. Please follow me on those. I'm pretty active on those. Occasionally, I'm on Facebook also. Not as active on there, but I am on there also. Um, and anything that you guys next week we will be back again roughly the same time. I welcome you guys all to join, and if you have any kind of questions or things you guys want us to talk about, please send us messages throughout the week. We can do some research on it, talk about it, or if you just want to talk about it throughout the show, please um, uh, give us what you guys want to talk about, whatever topics. And I thank you so much for joining us today. I thank you
Yeah,
guys
thanks,
for
guys. Thanks for coming.
that. And I'll see you guys soon on Twitter. Have a
Yeah,
good
thanks,
one.
man. Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one.
All righty, have a good one.